Have you figured out your niche? Are you helping adding value to other people's lives? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to Munira's Musings with your host, Munira Zahabi.
Greetings from Chicagoland. This is Munira, the Niche Navigator, coming to you live with another episode of Munira's Musings. Munira's Musings is a show where we showcase different people, different entrepreneurs, in different stages of their life, because we are so curious about what they are doing, what they did, and where they are going to go next. There's so many people standing on the sidelines trying to figure this out. And we are hoping that one of the stories, one of the speakers will intrigue you enough for you to join us in this sea of entrepreneurship. Our guest today is Tom Rose. He's the writer of A Balloon in a Box. Welcome, Tom, to Munira's Musings.
Thank you, dear. How are you today?
I am good. Where are you calling us from, Tom?
I'm from Goshen, Indiana, just a little bit east of South Bend, between South Bend and Fort Wayne.
Perfect. And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm an 82-year-old man. Spent most of my life in marketing and advertising. Like to play golf, like to read, like to listen to music, like to cook. My wife and I spent 13 years on television doing a cooking episode on a local Fox morning show. So I guess I've got a lot of interest and enjoy life.
That's so perfect. Now, you are a speaker and an author, and you wrote about a balloon in a box. What is balloon in a box?
Balloon in a box is coping with grief. It's my technique that I developed. I don't say developed. I learned after the death of my wife in August of 2019 from breast cancer, learning to move forward. I found a technique of using the balloon, imaginary balloon, to move forward with her and not without her. So it was a challenge from a friend. I was keeping a journal, which they told would help with grief. And a friend of mine read the journal and said that I had to, they said, you got to write a book. So after pushing me, I finally decided I'd sit down and write a book. And that was the COVID year of 2020. So I was home, we couldn't go out like you would normally do. And so I wrote the book, thinking that I'd print a couple hundred copies, give some to some friends, maybe sell some. And but I kind of caught lightning in a bottle. All of a sudden the media got a hold of it. I was getting stories in magazines and newspapers and things, and people calling and asking for radio interviews and podcasts. And all of a sudden, going from 200 books, I'm a couple thousand books now, and going to speaking engagements all over the Midwest here. And I'm even going to Florida here in a few months to go speak at several churches and organizations in Florida. So just kind of like I say, caught lightning in a bottle. So here I am talking to you.
So that's a wonderful thing, right? Because you said you lost your wife to breast cancer in 2019, and we are common souls because I lost my husband early in 2020, but it wasn't due to cancer or anything. He had very chronic disease, a kidney disease. And so we kind of are in that same boat. And
yes,
coping with grief, one thing that I know that nobody talks about it. Nobody is there. First of all, we want people to come and ask you who they are, but the only thing can ask you is, how are you? Or they don't know what to ask.
That's right.
So in coping with that, how did you feel when people just kind of stayed away?
Well, let me answer part of your question with, at the funeral home, you go to the funeral home and you stand in line, and you just said it. You stand there and you don't know what you're going to say when you get up there, We had about 450 people go through the visitation, and I learned what to say and what not to say in that day. What you were saying is people would come up and say, "How are you doing?" And the only answer you could have to say is, "I'm doing okay." When you really want to say, "Well, what the heck? How do you think I'm feeling? My wife's over here. She died. I'm lost. I'm lonely. I'm scared. I'm unhappy. I'm angry." All of those things. That's what you wanted to say, but you just said, "Oh, I'm okay." Uh, so thinking that way, then saying that, then I started thinking about the things that you can say when you go up there. Um, and bottom line, the best thing you can say to somebody is "I love you. I'm here for you." And that's, in fact, when you say "I love you," give them a hug and say "I love you." That says everything. That tells them you're there to support them. You'll do anything for them. So that's part of the healing process is started by somebody. There's a saying, and I quote it in the book, and I think you'll agree to this. The griever needs to find the words, to say the words, and know the words have been heard. And what you're saying is exactly that. You can't fix it. Just listen to the person who's grieving. That's all they need. They don't need you to come and fix it because you can't fix it. Uh, it's their grief journey to take. You can help them, but don't try to fix it. Uh, just listen to them. Don't try to tell them that, "Oh, well, you know somebody that's worse off." No, there isn't anybody worse off than I am the day I lost my wife or the month I lost my wife. That's the worst of the world for me. So nobody's in worse shape than I am. I'm sorry. Uh, I went through the first 3 months. I don't know how you handled it, but I was miserable. I was terrible. I was an absolute mess. Uh, um, I kicked God out of my life. I to my friends and everybody, I think they thought I was okay, but here in home by myself, I wasn't. And until a moment happened that I finally, my wife's favorite saying was, "It is what it is. Put on your big boy pants and deal with it." And finally, one night, that struck me, and that's what she would be telling me to do. And that's when I decided to move forward, to put my life back together, because that's what she'd want me to do. And down the road, then the book and the whole thing. So I had a lot of help along the way. My family was great. They didn't push me. They just listened. They loved me. I knew that. And so I used that. I used their love and her love to move forward. So here I am today, 3.5 years later. I'm a happy man. I'm a peaceful man. I, she's with me here right now. I have the part of the thing with the balloon is it's a balloon on a string, and it's in a box and it bounces around. And when it touches a side, you get a memory or something. You want to avoid it going into the corners where it hits all the things at once, and you got all too many emotions. You can't handle them. And in that balloon are all your memories. So right now, there's a string on my finger, and there's a balloon up here, and all my memories are right there of her, and they go with me wherever I go.
So, thank you so much for sharing that. That is heartfelt. Now, there are people who die every single day, and there are
Correct.
people who are born new people. And I'm going to be a devil's advocate just to hear your thoughts on it. So nothing against you, sir, but people die all the time. And what makes you unique? Why do you have to have a book? Why couldn't anybody else write a book? How do
Eh,
you think, I mean, I wrote a book, but it wasn't to do anything with grief. The way you asked me how I handled it, it was January, and within like a month, I had to get to my affairs in order. I had to work with Medicaid, Medicare, all of that, getting straightened out. All the bills had to be paid. So I went into an overdrive mode. I didn't have time to sit down and think about it. And then COVID hit.
right.
And when COVID hit, the whole world shut down. And I didn't know what to do, because what reality I had of just driving myself into this frenzy it wasn't there anymore. So I had to sit down and ponder as to where my life was going to take me. So it didn't hit me right away. It hit me after.
Right.
So what makes you unique? Like, why did you have a book? I mean, and I didn't talk about grief in my book, but you wrote this book. And how do you think your book is going to help other people?
Well, first of all, the book helped me. And actually, I wrote the book. If it helped one other person, just one other person, it was a success. It wasn't written to help other people. It was written to help me. It was written for me to do what I said earlier with the quote, to find the words, to say the words, and know the words have been heard. So that's the reason for the book. What happened after that and being able to help other people, the book wasn't intended when I wrote it to do that. However, it has. I had a very unique phone call a couple of weeks ago. A young man called me and answered the phone, and he introduced himself and he said, "You don't know me, but I just read your book." And I said, "Well, thank you very much." He said, "No, you don't understand, Mr. Rose." He said, we've lost my father. My mother had your book. I'm a senior in college. I have a serious relationship with a woman. We're thinking about getting married. And the other night at dinner, I asked my mother, how do I know I'm in love? And she gave me your book to read. So I stopped for a minute and I thought, no, I wrote a book on grief. But I guess it is a book on love because grief is love. Without love, there is no grief. So it was a kind of an interesting moment for me to say, wait a minute, this has affected some young man who who's lost his father, but who's looking to know what love is in order to make sure that he knows what he's doing in getting married. So those all kinds of the other interesting thing was I get a call and this young lady introduced herself and she said, I'm at the Kosciuszko County Jail, which is a county south of us. And she said, I'm in charge of the drug rehabilitation program. And I would like you to come speak. And I stopped and I said, well, wait a minute, you know who you're talking to? I wrote a book on grief. She said, yes. She said, Mr. Rose, you must understand that 80-90% of these people in here on the drugs in this program are here because of some kind of grief. Something pushed them over the edge. So I went, and it was again a very, very interesting experience for me. I've spoken to groups of 12 and to groups of 200, and this was a group of 12 men going through this program, educational program. They have to take classes and do all these things. In fact, what she did was she bought my book, and then after I spoke, she gave them the book. Then they were supposed to read the book, and I went back 2 weeks later for their questions. I'll tell you, their questions were the most intellectual and intelligent questions. And I looked at them all and I said, you guys are really smart. What the heck are you doing here? And they all looked at me and said, oh, Mr. Rose, we messed up. We made a mistake and we're trying to do. So all these experiences for me are all new. I've got a whole new different life. I never was like this before. I was a selfish person, I think, probably. I mean, everybody is selfish to a certain extent. But I've learned through this thing so much in the last 2 or 3 years just by writing the book and exposing myself to it. But again, back to the question, why me writing the book? I don't know. Maybe there's some kind of divine interference here and said, hey, you're the man to write a book, write it. Maybe you can help people. So I don't know, but I did it.
No, I say this to say this because when I lost my husband and when COVID hit, I joined quite a few widow groups in different communities. And I was amazed at people who haven't moved forward in life.
Exactly.
They've just stuck themselves. There was a lady that said, I haven't touched his things and his things are sitting there the way he left them. And I asked her, how long has it been? Oh, it's been 10 years. And I'm like, why are you stuck back in time? There is so much to life. Move forward, right? Yeah. And when I read a few chapters of your book, I loved the chapter on the balloon in a box because it talks about the memories. You don't want to be overwhelmed. You talked about that a minute ago. But the fact is that all we have is memories. And
Exactly.
if we but use the memories to be happy, not to be sad.
Right.
And when I read that chapter, I thought of that woman who was, I think, still in that place where she's so paralyzed, she doesn't want to move forward.
One of the things people do, and I did it, now maybe you did this too, you start thinking about all the things you didn't do, you wanted to do, you didn't do, that you should have said that you didn't say. But then uh, suddenly I'm thinking about, wait a minute, we were married 58 years. So we did a lot of things. Think about the things you did do, not the things you didn't do. And once I got that, then I would have happy memories. I tell a story, I maybe read it in the book, but I tell a story about Thanksgiving Eve. This was the first Thanksgiving afterwards. So it was November after the August. Uh, Family dinners have always been at our home. We always had the bigger house, and we have a small family. Uh, so the kids told me, they said, Dad, you do the turkey. We're going to bring everything else. So it's Thanksgiving Eve, and I'm at our little counter out here in the kitchen. I have my little glass of wine sitting on the counter, and I'm doing the turkey, getting it prepared. I'm stuffing it with the fruit and herbs, I always do. And I take the string to tie the legs, and I pull that string. I need a finger to hold that so I can tie the knot. And she's not there, because it was a joke with this. I mean, for years I'd do that. She'd put her finger there and she'd say, "Who helped you tie your Boy Scout knots?" And we'd laugh. One year, I think I said, my wife was a brunette and brown-eyed. I said, "I think it was a little blue-eyed blonde, and I think I got a dish rag the side of the head." But all of a sudden, I'm standing there with this turkey, and I'm laughing and I'm crying. If you'd have walked in my kitchen, you'd have said, "We need to take this man to the funny farm. He's gone over the edge." And I was crying, but it was a happy cry. Sometimes you cry and you cry because you're happy. And that's what I tried. You probably still do. I have a little tears every once in a while when I think of something, but it's a happy memory. Going through the holidays now, uh, we're Christmas people. We go overboard with presents and decorations and things. And my wife had 130 some Santa Claus statues she'd collected over the years. And I've been getting those out every year. Not the first year I thought, no, I'm not going to do this. And then I said, no, I have to do this. It's part of Christmas. It's part of her. It's part of my memories of her. So I've done it. My house is all decorated up, and in fact, the other day, a lady from Facebook, well, not from Facebook, a lady called me and said somebody had given her my book and she'd read it. And then they told her that she should call me. And she was saying, "I'm not going to decorate for Christmas." I said, "Okay." I said, "Can you tell me why?" She said, "I just don't think I can handle the memories." I said, "You have to decorate for Christmas. You just told me that was your husband's thing. He loved to do it, right?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "Then you have to do it for yourself." I said, "Because you will feel bad after if you don't." And she called me actually last night and said, "I decorated my home and I'm sitting here and I'm so happy." I said, "Good." I said, "That's what you have to do to move forward. You have to do those things. You can't shove them back and say, I'm not going to do that, or I'm not going to do this."
You bring such good points, right? I mean, these are things that we hear about. You hear about all the time, that you got to do these things, but you don't, right? And if you look at people in business, where my realm is, people most of the time know what they're supposed to do, but they don't do it,
That's
right?
exactly right.
And they forget what brings them joy, and they get so busy with the nitty gritty. And I think grief in some aspect is the same way, because you kind of have to bury it. Not bury it in the sense that, okay, he's gone, so let's just bury it. And I'm seen in a different light. I know people look at me and say, how is she so happy? How is she going forward in life? How can she just go? It's not easy.
No,
It's
it's not.
not easy.
No, we're both doing the same thing.
Right. But you have to go forward. You have to show the world that life happens.
Right.
But you're not dead. The
That's right.
person who's passed is gone, but you're not dead.
No, no. And everyone has something to share somehow. there's some little thing that everybody can contribute and has to contribute. You are, I am, everybody is. And when you learn that you have that thing to contribute, you need to do it. Uh, Everybody who's gone through this has something. But I'm finding that what you're saying is, people want to hide from it. People want to sit and feel sorry for themselves, which is easy to do, which I did. Um, I told people, I said, I was out in public, and I went to church, and I went to church because they could see me and say, "Oh, there's Tom Rose. I really feel sorry for him because he lost his wife." That was part of the thing you were looking for, I guess. And then when you suddenly realize that no, I can move forward, I can do these things. I've got a little question for you. Can women use a sentence with a man without putting something at the end? By that I mean, he comes home from work and you say, "Oh, hi, honey. How was your day? Oh, by the way, will you take out the garbage?" Every sentence has to end with something for them to do. You know what my wife did to me? She was in hospice for 3 weeks. The last conversation we had, about 3 or 4 days before she passed, was an evening. I was at the hospital 24/7, but I'm holding her hand. It's late. They turn the lights out in the hospital. She's holding my hand. We're talking. She was very lucid. She's telling me all the things that I had to do for the funeral, and there was a green bag in the closet with exactly what she wanted to take. She squeezed my hand. Last thing she said to me, "I love you. I'll see you in church." Now, she could have stopped with "I love you," but she had to give me something to do. So I have to go to church. I know when I'm sitting there that she's looking down on me and saying, "Yeah, okay, good. You're a good guy. Where were you last week?" uh, so, and when I go, it's a really pleasant feeling to know. I think she's still there beside me. Now I'm Catholic, and the Catholic Mass, we say the Our Father and we hold hands. When I'm sitting there, I know she's beside me, and when that comes in the Mass, I feel her take a hold of my hand. And again, that's such a pleasant feeling for me to go through. So I've learned to take all, I think, I still have my moments, but I think I have learned to take all these things and make something positive about them rather than negative. And it's easy to turn everything into negatives if you
Oh
want.
yeah,
It's easier to make negative than it is positive. So
very easy. But you learn a lot of things through that, right? Because my husband was very sick. He was and I sometimes blame him on this because he didn't take care of himself the way he should have. So lessons to learn, right? To take care of yourself, do little things for yourself, be happy. Don't wait till the last moment to go on a trip. If you feel like going on a trip, just get on a plane and go, right? But make provisions for all those things in life. So there are little things that he left, legacies of learnings for me, and I love that, right? um you've been such a, like, this is so enlightening. You can never talk to people about grief, but this has been wonderful. So what are the next step for you? Are you just looking for people to help? What are you doing?
I have decided after all of this and the conversations I've had with people and the feedback I've had from people that maybe this is what I'm supposed to be doing, is helping people. And so that's what I want to do. I want to help. I want to speak. I want to go. So if anybody out there, I'm available to come speak. I speak on grief, but it's a positive approach. It's not negative. I hope that everybody that leaves the meeting afterwards goes away uplifted, with a positive attitude. That's what I try to do. I try to do what I did in the book, but try to do that verbally. I tell more stories than are in the book, and don't. I use part of the book, but very little of it. Most of it's new stuff, and it's stuff that I've learned as I've been going on here. So yes, I want to. I want to speak. Uh, I, I wrote a book now on grief called "Balloon in a Box" on coping with grief, and I'm not a writer. Okay, I didn't pay attention in English class. So when I started to write the book, I would write a page. I'd be on a computer, and then I'd go to the thesaurus and try to change the words to big words because I thought that's what you had to do if you were an author. And I'd do that, and then I'd trash it, and then I'd do it again and read it and trash it because it wasn't me. I finally decided, write it as you. You're a simple person, write a simple book. If you read the book, and again, I went to 8 years of parochial school. So I said the biggest word in the book is the word Catholic, and I learned how to spell that in 8 years of parochial school. uh, well, I did. I tried very hard to be a professional author. But now I wrote a book, and now I'm writing a novel. In fact, it's done, and I'm going through the final stage. Again, the novel's for me. I wanted to do it, so I did it. I don't think it's too bad. I've got a publisher who thinks it's a pretty good thing. So I'm trying to finish that up. I'm working on another book, basically, or program called Reinvent Yourself, which is part of grief. You have to reinvent yourself. You have to reinvent yourself without that person. So it's after 58 years with her, I'm moving forward. I have to be a little bit of a different person because I'm not the same person I was with her. So I'm working on that. My son, you saw him earlier when we were setting up here. My son was the one that edited the book and formatted the book and everything. He helps me now with my presentations. As he said, he has to drive me around. He says, "I'm driving Mr. Daisy," and he does my introduction. So part of the grief is he lost a mother. So he does a real nice introduction. So we're working together on this Reinventing Yourself book and maybe being able to do presentations on that in the future. So that's where my future lies. I want to help people any way I can. I can't financially. I'm not a wealthy man. I can't be giving out money, but I guess I can give out advice. So
I think you're a wealthy man because it's not always about the money. It's about support. And
Yeah.
I think what you are doing is so amazing. And you have touched, I read a few chapters of your book, and the one chapter was grief that I read about. And I read about the balloon in the box, and that was very heart touching to me. And I think it's not about the money. It's you are wealthy in your experiences and your advice, and you're giving it to us right now. Thank you.
Well, I hope I can help some people, and if I can, uh, when I was in college, I was in speech and drama and all those things, and somehow I ended up marketing and advertising, I guess, which is a little bit close to it. But I maybe I made the wrong choices. Maybe I should have been doing this from the time I was 21 until until now, rather than finding out at actually 80 years old. When I wrote the book, what my real destiny was supposed to be, what I was really supposed to be doing. And I think my friends will tell you, my family, I'm a different person than I was 4 or 5 years ago. One of the things that grief, we talked about this part, grief is love. And there's a thing in the Bible that talks about love, and there are some different kinds of love. And one of them is called parma. And parma is continuing everlasting love. And I can honestly say, sitting here now, that I love my wife more than I did 4 and 5 years ago. And I think you can equate to this. When you're married, you continue to love and your love grows, but there are little interruptions. He leaves the tap off the toothpaste and leaves his dirty clothes on the floor in the bathroom. So you really don't love him that day, okay, or that time. When they're gone, those things don't occur. I mean, it doesn't happen. She's not upset with me, and I'm not upset with her because we said we were going to spend $100 on Christmas, and she's at 150 and still going. So those little interruptions aren't there anymore. So I'm able to continue to have my love grow, which I didn't think was possible. I always remember back when I first saw her, we were our first date. And that's something I always ask people. That's a happy memory. Tell me about your first date. That's the way I get them to loosen up. But I remember when I decided I was in love, I thought, this is the ultimate. There isn't anything any better. Well, then I realized we got married and that love grew. And then we had a son. I'm thinking, oh my God, this is really love. But no, then when my son had a daughter and I held her in my hands, I'm thinking, oh, now understand, this is where you're going with it. And no, that wasn't the end of it. It continues to grow all those years for 58 years. So that's, and like I say, I can get up every morning and I have a little thing. I get up in the morning and I say, good morning, Joyce. It's going to be a good day. Sometimes it isn't a good day. Sometimes it is. It's going to be a good day today because I talked to you. So I've got some real pleasant memories going through the rest of the day. I'm having a dinner party tonight. I'm having 6 friends in for dinner tonight. So that'll be my next thing. I've got some work to do here on my desk, and then I'm going to go start preparing my dinner meal, which I'm having duck confit, which is a fancy word for duck. It's not that fancy of a recipe, but people think it is. So I like to say it. I like to say we're having duck confit, and they're like, oh, But so those are the kind of things that the joys that I have. I wish you were here so you could come to dinner tonight.
Oh, thank you. I'd love to. But life has to go on and we have our things. But what you are sharing with us is moving on, grief, not basking in that thing. I always tell people that sometimes it's you're a cook, so you can understand. If you leave a chicken in the pan, it becomes tougher and tougher because it keeps simmering in that sauce and it doesn't go anywhere. It has to be just right. And in life, as businesspreneurs or as entrepreneurs or in anything that we do, when we let this chicken simmer, it doesn't go anywhere. We have to throw it out.
Right.
It becomes too tough. And too tough is not good. Right. What you have shared with us is, it's okay. Things happen. Let's just move forward.
Right.
I love that. So how do people find you, sir?
Well, I have a website. It's thomaslrose.com. My phone number's there. My email's there. Email's roseandrose@comcast.net. Very simple. Send me an email. Happy to give you a call. I talk to people almost every day. Somebody calls me. Somebody sends me a message on Facebook. People call me and say, would you contact so-and-so? They're grieving. And I say, no, I won't contact them. However, give them my phone number. When they want to talk or have them call me. I don't want to interfere in their life, but if they want to talk, I'm here. Call me anytime. Had a man call me from Florida here, talked about an hour the other night. The gal with the Christmas decorations, the young man, some of the people from the groups where I've gone. Very interesting at the groups. When I do a speaking engagement, I always ask if there are any questions in the middle of or 3/4 the way through the program. And there are usually maybe one or so, but not very many. But the minute I'm done, I've got 20 or 25 people that want to talk to me, want to share a story or want to tell something. People don't want to talk in front of the group, but they want to talk to you and say, and like I say, I always ask about the first date. Do you remember your first date?
I do.
Was it a happy time? Happy?
Oh,
you got a smile on your face. So that's what I do with people. I say, well, tell me about your first date. And they usually have a big smile like you just did when I said that. So I said, this is your lesson. Learn from what you just told me with that big smile on your face to do that with all the other things. Tell me about your wedding. Tell me about your first house. Tell me about your first child. Tell me about your first argument. Okay. And that's always fun too. They always go, oh yeah, it was really something stupid, wasn't it? So once you get people thinking that way, think about those things that, you went through life that were the pleasant, happy, fun things. What's the most fun you ever had as a couple? Another question I ask, and they'll go, oh, geez, 3 or 4 of them. Well, we did this, we did that. Had somebody the other night for the first date tell me, first date, they went to the beach and then they went out to eat dinner. and she had to pay for dinner because he lost his billfold down on the beach someplace. So that was kind of embarrassing. He said it was a kind of a blind date, so we didn't really know each other. That was our first experience, and then I got to ask her to pay for dinner because I can't find my billfold. So all kinds of funny stories like that. And if you read the book, I finally decided, I asked people about theirs, so I had to share mine. And mine was interesting. If you read it, you go, oh, I wonder how they ever had the second date and got married. But I just try to think, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm looking at you and listening to you, and you're a lot like my wife was. My wife was a strong person, stronger than I am probably. I'm a little stronger now because of her. And she had definite opinions, loved everybody, didn't have an enemy, would always chastise me when I would say something bad about somebody. She'd say, well, Tom, they're a person. They have their problems. They have their feelings. There's a reason they're that way. Oh, yeah, okay. But, don't judge them. People want, you don't want people to judge you. Don't judge them. So and up to, she went in the hospital. She was in the hospital 4 weeks. She was a week and then 3 weeks in hospice. A week and a half before she went to the hospital with all her problems, she was helping somebody with a problem. And I always look back and think, the woman was in pain. She didn't feel good, but yet she was out doing something for somebody. And that's a lesson you need to learn, Tom. So, because that's the kind of thing that I probably didn't do in the past. I wasn't a bad guy, but I wasn't the guy I could have been. And I hope now I am the guy I can be and do. So
you what you're doing is amazing, and sometimes it just takes something like this for us to know who we are and step into ourselves. And so thank you so much. I appreciate you being on my show, and thank you folks for being here, for listening. And I would love to hear this man talk, because he helps a lot of people just overcome the grief. But not only that, I love the fact that he's teaching us how to turn everything into positive. So if you have something negative that's happening to you, which everybody does, especially during this holiday time, I'm going to urge everybody to look at it from a different perspective. Put some positive spin on it. What if? Think about that. What if? And start looking at it from the perspective of the glass being half full, not half empty. And I promise you, you will change your settings. If you liked this show, please go ahead, like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And if you share this with anybody that you know, because Mr. Rose is here to help and take care of other people's griefs. I know he's going through his own, but he's here to take care of other people's griefs, because when you talk to somebody about that who's gone through this, it's really easy. Until next week, have a good week. We'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Rose.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Munira's Musings with your host, Munira Zahabi. If you enjoyed our show, please share and subscribe to this channel. And for more content, please join our Facebook group.